All right, we're going to move into our kind of next topic. It's called the 3 I's in business. So the whole concept around the 3 I's is, we're really, really busy in our day-to-day lives. And so we're always trying to figure out how to get better, how to be more efficient with our time, and spend our time on the things that matter the most. So we've all got way too much to do. I mean, how many of you, here it is, 10 after 9, have been looking at our watch already? I know Kim tells us, put your phones down, and I don't think I see any phones out. Oh, there's one busted, right there. Busted it for the phone.
Two out. Your thing on success, he has an interview today, so thank you.
Okay.
85% success.
She's make me feel bad for calling her out. Okay. All right. So, I mean, we all got stuff going on. Phones, are a great invention, but they're also the worst invention because we're always looking at them and we're always trying to say, geez, what do I have to do next? A lot of times in business, we spend too much of our time in the weeds, working on the minutia of the business versus working on really what we are hired to do. And so today we're going to spend a little more time kind of talking about where is your role within the business and where should you be spending your time in the business. So the big question comes back to, well, what if I stopped doing it? What if I stopped doing some of that other stuff? What would happen? Oh my God, the world would stop turning, wouldn't it? Yeah, the business is going to fall apart because, I didn't answer that one email. I had 60 of them, but there's one of them I didn't answer, so the business is going to fall apart. Well, at the end of the day, we find out that, we have resources that we can use. And those resources can be other people within your organization. They can be consultants that can help you. They can be part-time people that can help you. So you have to figure out kind of what those priorities are and what are the resources that you can use to take the things of less importance and less a priority for you and your level within the business and find someone else to help you with that. By not knowing everything that's going on, and that's a lot of time what happens, especially with business owners and small business owners, they feel that they have to have a pulse on everything. I got to know everything that's going on. Well, what happens if you didn't do that? Oh my God, there's that fear. The fear of not knowing every detail of what's happening in my business. The fear of not knowing everything that's, if I'm a salesperson, that's happening in the sales organization and such. Guess what? That fear will go away. You'll find out. So you don't have to do it all. You can find resources to help you. There's resources even within a lot of the NIA groups. There's a lot of people that work with virtual assistants. I've used some virtual assistants in the past, a lot of part-time work. I've been a proponent over the years to learn that I don't have to have people to do a job full-time. Especially in small businesses, you may not be able to have someone to do a job. A prime example might be a finance person. If you're in a small business, I can't afford to have a CFO, but guess what? There's a lot of people out there that do fractional work. They can work with you for 1 day a week or 2 days a week, or maybe it's a couple days a month. Same thing on the HR side. Well, I've got 20 people. Do I really need a dedicated HR person? Well, maybe not. Maybe you can outsource that. So there's other ways that you can get to the outcome, get to that knowledge that you need, but you don't have to do it all yourself. So as I mentioned before, it's really about focusing on what's important. That old 80-20 rule of what's 80% of my job that I should be spending most of my time on, those results. And what are the resources that I have in order to be able to accomplish that? So Michael Gerber is really the one that came up with this idea of the 3 I's of the business owner. And he says that, hey, owning a business isn't about micromanaging. It's about giving to others as a business owner. So, 3 eyes of the business owner. The way that he kind of presents it is as an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. So I know that not everybody here is a business owner. So this business, the entrepreneur could be the business owner. The manager could be, your salesperson within your organization. And the technician may be, that person that's really kind of doing the day-to-day work. Maybe it's the bookkeeper, or if you're in a manufacturing company, it's an assembly person or a warehouse person, or someone that's sending out, your mailings and things like that. That's the person that's, really getting direction from someone else that's really doing the grunt work of the business. So kind of think of that, even though these terms are used, where do you fit within the organization of the 3 eyes? So for the next few slides, I want you to kind of use this analogy. Think of ourselves as owning a business, and we are sitting on our beach, and the future of our business is this island out there. How are we going to get there? What's our focus? What's our vision that's going to get there in, say, 2 years or 3 years or 5 years? If we look at the entrepreneur and that scenario, the entrepreneur, the business owner, they're the person that's going to be looking out at the front of the boat, looking at where the island is and trying to figure out the path to take the boat to get to that island. They may ask questions such as, what if we did X? Or how could I do this, or more of this, or less of this, or whatever. The manager is going to be the person that's kind of that mid-level person. A lot of times they're focused on the past. So they're going to see, what are the results that we just got? Okay, so for example, what was our sales last month? Well, how can I get more sales in the coming month? What do I need to do differently? So in the boat analogy, the manager is the one that's really kind of looking back. They're seeing where you have been in the past and trying to figure out, what do I need to do to change the course maybe in order to get to that island in a better way in the future. The technician, as I said, is the person that's really kind of got their head down. They're involved in the details of the business. They're not necessarily the one that's going to be providing the vision of the business, but in our boat analogy, they're the people that are rowing the boat, and there's no PJ Fleck analogy associated with that, but they're really doing the grunt work. So it's a very important activity for that technician to be able to do, but not necessarily the one that's going to be providing the direction for the business going forward. So once again, if we look at our boat analogy, that entrepreneur, that business owner is sitting at the front of the boat and providing guidance and looking towards the future. The manager is probably sitting in the back of the boat, looking how they got there, making suggestions on what we might be able to do differently to get us there quicker, more efficiently. And then the technician is the one that's going to be rowing the boat in the middle. So, next activity, get with your partner again. We got 5 minutes, and answer this question. Where do I currently spend most of my time in my business? So, if I'm the manager, am I spending most of my time kind of doing those manager duties, or am I doing technician duties? If I'm the owner of the business, am I spending most of my time thinking about the going forward of the business, the vision of the business, how I'm going to get there, the strategy, or am I spending time, worrying about, oh, this piece of equipment broke today and I need to go out and fix it? I've had that happen with business owners I've worked with. So 5 minutes, talk with your partner, answer this question. Where are you today? All right. Put pens down. We're going to come back and visit this in a moment.
Oh, I guess. Yeah.
So as we look at our business and where we are within the business, you need to really ask yourself, what was I hired to do? And am I using my 80-20 rule? Am I spending 80% of my time working on the things that I was really hired to do. So one of the ways that we can look at that is if we start to put some numbers to this. So let's say you're the business owner, you're the entrepreneur. What are you worth? An easy math is you take your salary divided by 2,000 hours. This is 150,000, this is 90,000, and this is 40,000 a year. Don't know if those are the right numbers, but just to give you kind of a frame of reference. Yeah, so if you're the entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're that business leader, you're making 75 bucks an hour, should you be working, the technician job? And that's really, if you put money to it, it's a different way of looking at it. Sometimes business owners will think, oh, well, I have to do that. Or I started my business, 10 years ago, and I always used to do that. Well, that was 10 years ago when it was just you. Now you've got 20 people, you've got 30 people in your business. Should you be doing technician work? And so the idea here is to really start to ask yourself, where are you spending your time, and is it best for you to get paid for doing some of that work? If I'm the business owner, should I be paid? Should I be doing the work that I can pay someone 45 bucks an hour to do? Should I be doing the work of a technician where I could pay someone 20 bucks an hour? If I'm that manager, should I be doing technician work where we could pay someone else? So it's really looking at the value of your time, what were you hired to do, and saying, geez, you know what, I can use a different resource. We talked a little bit about that already. So that could be a different resource within the company to do some of this work, or it could be hiring someone on the outside, a part-time person or whatever, to do some of this work for you. So as a business owner, you're not doing the technician work. I worked in a business recently where I came in as a turnaround, but the business owner had sold it to this private equity group, and he stayed in the business. And he started the business. He grew this business over 18 years as a machine shop, and started on his own. And he had 20-something people working for him when I joined him, but he still had that mentality that, oh, a machine's down, I need to go work on it. So this is the business owner that's going out and fixing a machine. And it's like, really? Is that what you should be doing as the business owner? Shouldn't you be thinking about, hey, how can I get more customers? How can I generate more revenue? How can I be more profitable versus going out and fixing the machine? Is there no one else within the organization that could do that for you? And if there is no one else, can I hire someone from the outside to do that? Or should I have that skill set within the company to do? So think about it. Think about it in terms of dollars and cents. What am I paid to do, and am I spending most of my time doing that?
Quick question again.
Yeah.
So what about that business owner that they don't necessarily want to replace what gives them joy? So maybe he got joy into working with his hands, and if he hired all the technicians and all he was dealing with is the crap that he doesn't like, wouldn't he be better off hiring people to do the other stuff that doesn't give him joy, and he could still be, in charge? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's a great question. And as I would, in my coaching practice, work with an individual for that, I would say, then as the business owner, what your role is as a business owner versus what gives you joy is out of whack. And so guess what? That's probably going to create conflict for you, and you're not going to enjoy your job. So you need to think about to do it differently. And as a business owner, you don't have to necessarily be the person at the top that's providing the vision. You can be the person that says, yeah, I'm not good at this. I don't want to do this. I still want to own my business, but I can hire a president to come in or a general manager and do that for me so I can do these other things. Absolutely, you can do that. Absolutely. But that business owner needs to understand that someone has to do that role. Someone has to provide that vision, that path. And if that's not something that they're good at, then they need to find someone. And they don't have to be a full-time person. There's fractional CEOs out there. There's fractional general managers out there that could help that person. That's a great question.
We got them in NIA too.
Yep. All right, our next exercise, about 7 minutes. We got 4 things that we're going to talk about. Think about within your company, what's the hourly rate within your company? Where should you be spending most of your time in your business? And I say should be. What was I hired to do? Not necessarily what I'm doing, but what was I hired to do? Where should I be spending most of my time in my business? What activities am I doing today that maybe are below my rate? And what do I commit? Again, how are we going to take this new knowledge and use it? What do I commit to do differently going forward? All right, 7 minutes to talk with your partner. We're going to come back and talk about this in a moment, some of your results. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about here with the 3 I's is understanding what your role is within the organization and make sure that you're spending most of your time doing that and that you're working on it versus in it. And really the in it part is that technician part of the business to avoid spending your time too much down in the weeds working on the minutia when there's other people that can do that. So what actions are we going to take immediately as a result of what we discussed? Before we end today, when we do our introductions, I'm going to ask you to share with the group your answer to this question, okay? So make sure that you've got something written down for the end. So that's our discussion around the 3 I's. Any questions for folks on what we learned today with either the Carnegie Triangle or the 3 I's of the business owner and where we should be spending our time? Damn, I did a good job, huh? Yeah.
I think the idea of measuring the value of these different roles on an hourly rate, I think that's one way to address it. I think it's limited. I don't think it necessarily encapsulates everything that might be involved by anybody doing what they're doing. I mean, the mention was made, but what if somebody, a business owner, loves to get their hands all greasy working on a printer that's broken down?
Yep.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, if it provides balance for that owner, so much the better because they're going to be more effective potentially in what they're doing. All I'm saying is I think this hourly rate application is one way to try to address it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And in her example, the thing that you have to also take out of that is that the business owner really loves doing that. Someone still has to run the business. So if it's not going to be the business owner to run the business, who is that going to be to run it? And what is that person's role, whether it's a fractional person or a full-time person or whatever? You still have to have someone that's really providing direction for the business. If the business owner says, you know what, I built this business, but I suck at it. I suck at finance. I don't have vision. I just like working with the operators out on the floor. Great, but who's going to run the business? But that's the trade-off. You still have to figure out, there still has to be someone in that role that runs the business. And that's great. The owner doesn't want to do that, but they still have to figure out who's going to do that.
Well, of course, but if they have things set up, if it's a so-called successful company, the company itself is going to describe that. They've already paved the path for all that to happen. So in part, they give themselves.
If everybody had that, I would be out of business.
But everybody does. We know that.
Exactly. And a lot of times that's what happens is that, especially in small businesses, the owners haven't developed a good leadership team to be able to run the business in their absence. It's always kind of fell on their shoulders to run it. So, your point is absolutely valid point, but you still have to have someone to run the business. You know, the owner may make more money because they're the one that took the risk at the beginning and built the business. So they may be making money, and you're absolutely right. You know, they may not be the quote unquote technician salary, but that's what they like to do. But they still have to find someone to run that business.